Hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News of this Thursday, the 16th day of October, 2025. And in the headlines this hour, the issue of demilitarization of Hamas continues to be in the headlines, as well as an announcement from Donald Trump that he plans to meet Vladimir Putin very soon, hopefully to end the war in Ukraine. So we have some major headlines, obviously, to bring to you. So let's get to them. First, from Israel National News, Donald Trump said if Hamas keeps killing people, we'll have no choice but to go in and kill them. A similar story from Jewish News Syndicate, the focus on the peace process is turning to demilitarization of Gaza, the Trump administration advisors say. And then we just have this that just came in from the Israel HaYom website. The Trump Gaza plan is on the verge of collapse, warned Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Why? Because of the lack of demilitarization of Hamas. All right, and finally, Donald Trump says, I'll meet Putin in Hungary to try to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war. This is from Newsmax, so it's a very powerful story, so let's get to them. Headline number one, Trump says if Hamas keeps killing people, we'll have no choice but to go in and kill them. He warned Hamas they were violating the ceasefire agreement by killing people in Gaza, and Hamas members themselves would be killed if they don't stop the killing. He said, thank you for your attention to the matter. You must stop the killing right away. He told CNN on Wednesday that Israel may resume its military campaign in Gaza if Hamas fails to uphold the current ceasefire, stating that Israeli forces could return to action as soon as I say the word. We gave that story yesterday. So again, Hamas continues to fail to comply. They keep killing these antagonists, these clans, these people who they believe were collaborators with Israel. They're doing it publicly in the streets. And they've been, brandishing weapons and saying they're not going to de-arm themselves, and so that no demilitarization of Gaza. So this is something that needs to be taken care of. Gideon Saar, the foreign minister, also said, because you've got the problem with returning the hostages' bodies. There's still 19 to go. Today, the last female body was identified. She was killed the day of the massacre 2 years ago, and so the rest of the other 19 that are left are males of the 28 bodies that are in the process of being recovered. So Gideon Saar says they know where they're at, and we know where they're at. So there's no reason they can't bring them back. So we'll see what happens next. Now, Jewish News Syndicate. Focus on the peace process turning again to demilitarizing Gaza, Trump administration advisors say. It's not realistic to expect people just to drop arms, a senior U.S. advisor told reporters. A senior administration official told reporters that efforts are underway to demilitarize Gaza. We're defining a path that makes everyone feel safe, the advisor says, who declined not to be named, told reporters it's not realistic to expect people to just drop their arms. And here's the real issue. The dynamic is complex. But here's the good news. The sentiment from Arab mediators and even supposedly from Hamas is to keep working together toward a solution, the advisor says. Seems the ones on the ground in Gaza haven't gotten the word yet, have they? The advisor and another senior U.S. advisor who spoke to reporters anonymously told them that one phase, the first phase of the Israel-Hamas war, which focused on deconfliction, entry of aid, and returning the bodies of hostages, so far has been a success, even though the remainder of the bodies have not been returned yet. One of the advisors refuted media reports that Israel had cut the amount of aid due to enter the strip. He said, no, we've had positive conversations with the UN to ensure that aid effectively reaches people in Gaza. There have been no cuts so far, no intention to cut as long as the deal holds. And Donald Trump has said, now this is what's really interesting, an international stabilization force, which he's outlined in his 20-point plan, is starting to be constructed, one of the advisors said. And here's who's going to be involved. Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Qatar, and Azerbaijan have all expressed interest in taking part in a multinational force to assume security control in Gaza during a transitional period. A technocratic Palestinian-led transitional government, which we've talked about, for which Trump plans, what the Trump plan is also called, is starting to take shape. Many people are reaching out. We're moving deliberately, one of the advisors told reporters. Hamas is weaker than ever. People see a different future and have the courage to reach out. And again, Trump has given Hamas leeway to police Gaza for a very limited period of time, but they're to stop the extrajudicial killings in the streets. And they're working to get this stopped. So that's one of the problems we've got right now. And one of the headings here is we're using every lever, every part of leverage we can, because they want to get Gaza rebuilt and they want to get the bodies recovered And there's countries, including Turkey, that have offered Turkey and Egypt, who have experts in body recovery teams. So we'll see. Everybody knows the process must go forward. It's really interesting how all these countries, for their own particular reason, want to see the war over. And Hamas, it seems that the leaders of Hamas there in Doha, Qatar, want to also, but the ones that are in Gaza sometimes have a different opinion there. And they're the ones that got to, disarm. And so we're waiting to see what happens. And so that's that story. Now, this next one is really interesting. This just came across the wire right before I did the program, so I had to add it here. The Trump Gaza plan is on the verge of collapse, warns Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. This is from the Israel HaYom website. Arab and American sources have confirmed that the Sunni axis, which also includes Bahrain, has warned the White House that the Trump Gaza plan is in danger of falling apart. As long as Hamas retains its weapons, we will not continue the process, the message states. Communication sent to Washington argued that the leniency shown by mediators, that's Qatar, by the way, has allowed the terrorist organization to evade its obligations. They've been warning about Qatar and their relationship with Hamas. Due to what they describe as the mediator's leniency regarding Hamas's refusal to disarm, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain have issued warnings that the effort to end the war is at risk of collapsing. Arab and U.S. diplomatic sources confirmed to Israel HaYom that messages to this effect were sent by the Gulf states of the moderate Sunni axis to the White House to the architects Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The warnings focus on Hamas's conduct since the ceasefire began, including the systemic assassination of rivals from competing clans, armed displays in the streets, what they've been showing, extorting of local merchants, and statements by senior officials flatly rejecting the prospect of disarmament. In their latest communication with Washington, the Saudis warned that unless there is a decisive U.S. response and a change in approach by the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, to enforce the plan's terms on Hamas, Saudi Arabia will not participate in the continuation of the process. This is a diplomatic source confirmed that to Israel HaYom that the message had been delivered to the Americans. He said, for months, the Saudis have made their position clear. There's no viable solution to the war in Gaza or the future of the Palestinians in general as long as Hamas remains part of the equation. This organization has inflicted enormous harm on the Palestinian people. That's a great statement, but an understatement. A war that led to the deaths of tens of thousands of its own, the destruction of the entire Gaza Strip, and now insists on preserving the armed resistance. He added that it is a resistance that has caused a catastrophe even worse than the Nakba. It is absolutely clear that Hamas will sabotage any force, whether it be Palestinian, Arab, or international, seeking to restore order in the Strip, as long as there's no serious move to eliminate Hamas's influence and control over Gaza. There's no chance for rehabilitation or construction. So they sent this message to the U.S. The UAE sent a similar message as the Saudis did. But since they've already invested considerable resources in aiding Gaza's displaced, their warnings are focused on areas under Hamas control. In other words, they're going to continue their rebuilding efforts in part of the Strip that Israel maintains control. However, they made it clear they will not participate in construction as long as Hamas is in power or has any weapons in their hands. And so that's the real story right now. They're not only not returning the deceased hostages, the disarmament there. Now they've got a plan how they're going to go in and do it. We've talked about that. It's not going to be easy. But the good news is they've got everybody on their side, all the Arab and Muslim countries, it seems. So hopefully sooner rather than later it'll get done. But like we said, it's not going to be an easy thing. The good news for Israel is that these countries are on board with them to get rid of Hamas in Gaza. And finally, we have this story. One, lest we forget, is still going on. Donald Trump says, I'll meet Putin in Hungary to try to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war. This is from Newsmax. President Trump said today, Thursday, he'll meet Vladimir Putin in Hungary to try to resolve the war in Ukraine, but a date has yet to be determined. I believe great progress was made with today's telephone conversation, he wrote on Truth Social after his early afternoon phone call with Putin. We agreed that there will be a meeting of high-level advisors next week. The U.S. initial meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with various other people to be designated. A meeting location is yet to be determined. President Putin and I then will meet at an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. Trump's call with Putin comes ahead of Trump's meeting on Friday at the White House tomorrow with Ukrainian President Zelensky, who has been pressing Trump to silk Tomahawk missiles that would allow Ukrainian forces to strike deeper into Russian territory. Now, Putin really did not like that. That Trump is the Tomahawks go something like 1,500 miles that go deep into Russian territory. He didn't like that idea at all. So possibly this is one of the impetuses of getting together. Zelensky has argued that such strikes would help compel Putin to take Trump's call for direct negotiation between Russia and Ukraine to end the war more seriously. Trump has told reporters traveling with him to Israel on Sunday he planned to discuss the Tomahawks with Putin as a way to pressure him to end Russia's war in Ukraine. Do they want to have Tomahawks going in that direction? I don't think so, Trump said on Sunday. I think I might speak to Russia about it. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. Ending the wars in Ukraine and Gaza were central to Trump's 2024 election pitch, and that's what he's doing right now. He's in the process. We've seen what he's done already in Gaza and Ukraine. Russia is the next one. And this is important, as we've said before, for last days Bible prophecy, because Russia cannot be involved yet in any last days invasion of Israel until this war with Ukraine is over, because their army is totally, there fighting that every last person they have, every last munition that they have is fighting against Ukraine. Once that gets over, when they regroup, then sometime down the line, there'll be this coalition of nations led by Russia that will attack Israel. But again, there's some things, as we've mentioned, that are still not in place. Libya cannot raise an army yet. The country is still divided. That problem, Israel is not in a place like they will be in Ezekiel 38, where they feel like their borders are secure. And the United States are still involved in the Middle East. They will not be involved in the Middle East during this Russian-led invasion because whoever their leader is at Russia at that time, this leader Gog, would not give a second thought to invading because he's not worried about a superpower standing up for Israel. Now, that wouldn't be the case right now, but it will be the case in the future. So we'll see what happens to all these things. Lots going on. We'll keep you posted. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.